preparing as much as you can for the presentation, the best presentation of your case before the tribunal, right? And so what happened was I did that in an unhealthy way where I didn't exercise. I resorted to drinking, right? And then I shifted. I said, you know what? I have to make a commitment to myself to make sure that I put my health first, even though I'm under these very stressful professional situations, right? The reason I decided to do that was I had a very close friend. You know, he was 46, and from one day to the next, he passed away from a heart attack. And for me, that was a very hard and eye-opening experience to go through. And I decided to take steps to take my health into my own hands, right? When I did that, you know, I just started with a very simple exercise, which was literally making sure that I exercised at least 2 days a week, even if I was in trial. So even though I'm under the most stressful circumstance that an attorney can be, I am committing to exercising at least 2-3 times a week during that period. Because if I didn't commit to that, I would go 2-3 months without doing any sort of physical activity, right? And so then that thing led to, you know what, I need to gain additional self-awareness of the thoughts that I'm experiencing when I'm under these particular trying periods. And so I just started reading more information on personal development, and I really honed in, Hector, on one area that I completely disregarded about myself, which was my emotional wellness, right? As attorneys, we like to say, and I call, you know, to some extent, I call bullcrap on it. We like to say, hey, I'm very emotionally resilient. I'm an attorney. I don't feel things and this and that and the other. But that's not the reality. The reality is we learn to suppress our emotions. We learn to numb them, right? That's why attorneys, doctors, other professionals like certified public accountants, you know, we oscillate between being in the number one spot when it comes to stress, anxiety, depression, and suicide, alcohol abuse, and substance abuse. And so I was seeing all of this with my colleagues, right? And I was seeing that it was just not getting any better. And so I actively decided to start working. When I was, you know, doing my 9-to-5 job, I was coaching on the side, you know, for free, because I wanted to see if it was something that was viable, something that there was interest in, whether other attorneys wanted to get coached by an attorney who had been living that life. And now I had moved away from it, from a particular way of living, which was in an unhealthy way, and one that really nurtured my holistic wellness. And there was interest, and that's what I'm doing now.
There's so much in there. I remember we met at the One Life conference, I believe in Sacramento, back in October, when you were very at the beginning of this journey, and you were, I don't even know if you had left your job yet, right? I think you were leaving it a couple of weeks after that. And so there's a couple of things that's wrapped in here. The first thing I want to talk about is you mentioned suicide, substance abuse, and kind of a lack of emotional awareness, maybe. Or you said that there was, they claimed resilience, but I agree in that it's bullshit, and it just seemed from a suppression. So what have you found is at the heart of that, or what, you know, maybe for someone who's not in the legal space, or maybe for someone even who is, what kind of lessons can the One Life community take from you, who's kind of been there and are now coaching people through some of those challenging emotional times?
I think based on the work that I've been doing in the legal community, one thing that applies generally, and I mean, I have to tell you, the beautiful thing is even at the conference that we just had in San Francisco, the first iMaterNow conference, 50% of the folks in attendance, about 50% were attorneys and law students. The rest were professionals from other industries, teachers, architects, software engineers, PhD students, undergrad, people who were not in the legal profession who were attracted to this information, right? And it was powerful to have, Matty A, Diego, Sophie, Chilla, Ritu, all the speakers just were really focused on providing information that was applicable to any fast-paced, high-stress profession, including entrepreneurs, right? But for me personally, what I would say is one of the things that I see a lot and that I work a lot with my clients is moving from self-defeating self-talk to living self-empowered through self-awareness and self-management of your emotions. Let me say that again. So going from self-defeating self-talk to living self-empowered through self-awareness and self-management. Okay. So every day we have it's like somewhere between 50 to 70,000 thoughts. Okay. Majority of those we don't really pay attention to. Majority we just, allow them to run. Right. And sometimes we say, oh, there's a lot of negative self-talk that happens, but more specifically, Hector, it's not just that it's negative self-talk. It's really limiting self-talk. And I like to, when I work with my clients, I mention things like limiting emotions, right? When we're under a lot of stress, what tends to happen is we are going to be limited in our learning and our ability to tackle a new task in two ways because of our actual ability to do that task and our actual willingness to do that task. So stress is in the profession is very high, right? And that's one of the things that I tend to work with my clients the most because your ability is impacted by stress because your attention allocation gets shifted. It gets shifted away from the task at hand. You shut down and your body sees whatever you're doing, whatever new challenge as a threat. And your body's like, I'm not going there. Oh, hell no, And so you automatically just shut down. Your body's like just focused on, oh, you want to do a trial? That's fine and dandy, but I'm just not there, man. So your ability gets limited. And then also your willingness, your desire to do that particular task under stress gets limited because you end up in that situation. If you don't manage your stress, emotions of inferiority come up, of self-doubt. And then you start, becoming, self-deprecating. And so that limits, stress doesn't just limit your ability to actually take on a challenge, but it also limits your willingness and your desire. And Hector, better than anyone, if you don't have enough reasons, if you don't have your why right in front of you, if you don't have your desires to do something, you're not going to get it done. And so what I've learned is to really help folks foster two emotions that are incredibly difficult for most people to foster, which is joy and excitement. Those are two key emotions that we don't tend to pay enough attention to that really can just like change your life if you learn how to foster those emotions, right? And a lot of it starts with self-awareness. And one of the things that I work with my clients on when it comes to self-awareness is this question, Hector, has developed over time, right? I started with, why am I feeling this way, right? I started there. But the question is, why do I feel what I feel when I feel it? And that gives you a whole new level of self-awareness when it comes to your emotions. Why do I feel what I feel when I feel it? Because you're not just paying attention to the particular emotion that you're feeling in the circumstance. Now you're asking, well, what's the circumstance? What's the environment that emotion is coming up in? And then you're trying to understand why is it coming up in that situation, which could be for a number of things. It could be maybe you've had a bad experience, before, and so that emotion's coming up again in that similar experience that you're having in that moment. So I think those are just some takeaways from the work that I've been doing, the coaching that I've been doing, and also the emotional wellness masterminds that I've been hosting once a month that really, if people are able to just take a few of those, and apply them to their lives, can really make a difference. I mean, heck, Hector, today, right? Like my morning routine involves a gratefulness meditation, and in the evening, a forgiveness meditation. You start with gratefulness, you end with forgiveness, so that none of the things that in your life you are, that you experience in that day, there's no resentment that carries over to the next day. What that does, it allows you to foster greater joy, right? How do you foster greater excitement? Well, sometimes if you're, stuck in a job that you don't want to be in, it can be hard, right? It could be like, man, I I've been here for 12 years. I want to transition. And this is real, like stories. This is like how a client comes to me, like, Fernando, I've been an attorney for 12 years. I want to transition. I want to do something more. I want something different. I have a family now, and things have changed in my life. My priorities have changed. I want to move to a place where I'm not tired every single day that I go into work. I'm not tired every single day that I leave work. I want to have energy for myself and my family, my loved ones, right? And so we have to start where they are, which is a lot of times there, right? And one of the things that I have found very helpful, Hector, has been ask this question: how can you make it better? How can you make it better? So that applies in so many contexts. Just you go into work, you have an assignment, you know, and it's gonna eventually benefit a client. And I think this applies generally, not just in the legal field. I mean, you have clients. A lot of other people watching this right now have clients. How can you make it better? And what that does, you answering that question makes you think about processes or systems or things that maybe you have not done before, right? Maybe you haven't pushed yourself in a certain way before. And so that ends up fostering some excitement in an environment that may or may not, that you might feel you can't foster excitement anymore, you know? And then if you do want to transition, then start doing what I did, which was, work full time, and in the evenings and the weekends, just really plan.
That's beautiful, because we talked about the wholeness side, right? And I think that was a big part of your journey. And then the second part was you going out there, and now you'd never done a podcast before. You never did, had to make your own kind of Facebook page or you design a logo. And what I love now is I said it before when we hopped on, is you went straight to the top of what we call like the value ladder in terms of the conference. And, some people will start out and build up slowly, but you really, as your wife said, come full circle with everything. So talk about what that plan was, and talk about what specifically that journey looked like, from going from a full-time lawyer, in that grind, working for someone else's, I don't even know if it's for someone else's dreams, working for someone else's freedom maybe. And then now on the other side, building your own freedom and building your own dreams. What was that plan like, and what's that journey now been like that you're there?
It was scary as hell. It was scary, man, because I don't have any family members who are entrepreneurs or have been entrepreneurs, who have owned their own businesses. I'm a first generation attorney. My background, Hector, I come from an immigrant background. I grew up poor, and I definitely didn't have a lot of resources growing up. There was a lot of, and I mentioned some of this at the conference, there was a lot of lack that I experienced. But I was also very resourceful, and I learned resourcefulness from my parents. I used to go clean houses when I was 10, 11 years old with my mom. And I remember her being told hey, you're my servant, being told that she was someone's servant, being made fun of because she didn't speak English adequately, being made fun of because of the color of her skin. All of that I knew was unjust, but I didn't know what to do about it until I got older, and then I was like, okay, I can go into law school. I can really impact and help others through this profession, which I did for many years. But a couple years ago, I just started seeing this additional underlying problem, where being 10 years in the profession, younger attorneys, ask you questions, and law students ask you questions. And I just started seeing this pattern of people just being under very, very challenging mental and emotional health situations. And I'm not the kind of person that I'll just sit idly by and, oh, there's a problem there, whatever, no, I wanted to tackle it head on. And so I tapped into my reasons for wanting to do it. I wanted to help my fellow colleagues. I wanted them to learn how to take better care of themselves. My goal has been to provide the information, give you self-awareness, and then you make the decision as to what you want to do with that at the end of the day. Because I understand, especially like in this field, like people don't necessarily resist change. They resist being changed, forcefully changed. And so I learned very early on that I was not going to do that. But if I can help you make enhancements to your life from a place of inspiration, then I'm all in. And I've worked with people, like Tony Robbins says, people are going to make changes in their lives from inspiration or desperation. And I've worked with both. I work with people who are like, coming from a place of desperation. They need to make a change in their life now. And okay, that's where you are. Let's move forward. But I really try to, work with folks who are trying to make, changes in their lives through inspiration. And so what I literally practically had to do, Hector, was I ended up, working with Matty A as a coach. Okay, that was a huge factor. If you are going into a field and a profession and a particular industry that you have not been in before, I highly, highly recommend that you work with a coach, because it's something that's going to help you shorten your learning curve, but more importantly, keep you accountable. And I think I had, all the ideas, Hector. I had, I ended up writing a business plan. And this was literally like, I leave, my house at, 7 a.m. after I did my morning routine. I go to work a full day. I wouldn't get back till 6:30, 7 p.m. at night, have dinner. And then literally on my calendar, I'd have 8 to 9:30 p.m. or 8 to 10 p.m., depending on how much I was willing to, to take on that day. I would write not a business plan, but a page of a business plan. And after, 2-3 weeks, I had a business plan, And so a lot of times we get overwhelmed because a business plan, I tell my clients, it's really important. If you want to make a transition to something, you have to have a business plan. It helps you do the research around what's needed, and more importantly around, the business plan helps you understand, where there might be areas of service that are not being provided yet. I definitely found this one, especially coming from an attorney helping other attorneys. They tend to listen to that a little bit more because, hey man, I've been there. I've been in a very stressful trial. I've been in a very stressful appellate situation, right? I can talk about motions for summary judgments, depositions, discovery disputes all day, every day, Hector. Don't get me started. But it's just, and then on the weekends, again, I would do maybe like, 4, 5, 6 hours on Saturday, and I try to rest on Sunday. But if I needed to, I would add some more time, because I knew that this was what was required for a certain period of time. And after I would handle that task, then I would move on to the next thing. What did I need to do next? And then I would just hone in on that. And that's been honestly like one of the key tools that I used then and I still use now. Like for the conference, I focused on nothing else but just launching the conference. And when I wrote the book, I focused on nothing else, Hector, but just launching the book. When I started the podcast, I tried to clear up as much as possible to just work on the podcast. And when you focus on one thing at a time and you break down all the things that you need to do to accomplish that, it becomes a lot easier. It becomes a lot more digestible. It doesn't become this big overwhelming thing, And so now I've been getting hit up like, hey, Fernando, help me out, man. How do I start a podcast, dude? Like you did it. You're doing it. Like, how do I write my first book, man? I want to do it. Like, and so I'm like, look, this is what you have to do. And I've worked with people just, helping them remain accountable. I didn't think I was going to be doing this, Hector, like helping a couple people like launch their own podcast, but I've been able to do it. And that's pretty cool.
Beautiful stuff. Beautiful stuff. We have a few people hopping on. Looks like your wife said it's just so great that you guys are a great team. So you mentioned now that you've been helping people with a lot of things, launching podcasts, or increasing their emotional health. What are some practical tips, or if people could leave this interview with, these are a few things that you need to do in order to increase that emotional resilience, or whatever that is. What kind of practical tips can you leave the audience with?
One exercise that I feel really was a hit and people really enjoyed after I did one of the emotional wellness mastermind sector was, okay, and this is something that I'm still doing, and I'm gonna continue doing once I'm actually gonna be taking the emotional wellness masterminds online. So keep an eye out for that, because it's gonna be a lot of fun. So everything that I've been teaching in person, I'm just gonna bring it online, and I'll connect with the One Life community for sure if anyone's interested in being my beta testers. But one thing was to increase self-awareness, because that's where a lot of it starts, Hector. Increasing self-awareness about what you are feeling throughout the day, right? 50 to 70,000 thoughts. A lot of those thoughts are creating emotions that you don't even know you have. Let me give you an example. Okay, for a quick second, Hector, put your hands over your heart, both of them. Okay, close your eyes, and I want you to think. And if you're watching this live, just follow along. Do this as well. Just close your eyes. Put both of your hands over your heart. Feel it beating. Take a deep breath. Release it. And I want you to think of two people that you have an incredible amount of love for in your life right now. Take a deep breath and breathe. Just breathe one of those persons in. Release it. Take another breath and breathe that other person in. Think about how it feels to embrace them, to genuinely just give them a big hug. Think about how it feels to just spend time with them, to be surrounded by their energy. And breathe all of that in as you continue to feel the beat of your heart. Continue to breathe them in. See them, hear them. Use all of your senses, smell them, and just breathe in. These are people that you love so much, that you are genuinely grateful for and appreciative. Take one more breath. All right, Hector. Let me ask you a couple questions. First one, what are some emotions that you are feeling right now? If you were to label a couple of emotions or more, or what are some emotions that you're feeling?
Gratitude.
What else?
Joy.
Joy.
Yeah.
What else?
Maybe you primed me for those. I'd say those were the two that I tuned into most. Just
beautiful.
I just recognized those, and there was a lot. Yeah, I'd say that those were the two that.
Yeah, and you probably ended up feeling other emotions as you went. Probably
Yeah.
excitement. To some extent, you're like, oh man, I'm thinking about them.
Mm-hmm.
In 60 seconds. I mean, literally, that was like 60 seconds, right?
Mm-hmm.
Some of my meditations tend to be a little bit longer when I work with my clients, but in 60 seconds, you just tapped into your heart,
Mm-hmm.
and you fostered these emotions. And you can do this at any time during the day. It's a simple exercise that if and some people actually, think of themselves, man, thank God for me, right? Thank God for the people that I love, but also thank God for me, and I think we don't tend to do that enough. Just pause and really, really meditate on the people that you love and that you are grateful for. Heck, you can just do that and meditate for 60 seconds about the things that you're grateful for, and the fact that we're alive, that we get to have this conversation, Hector. I'm very grateful for that. You know what I mean? And in anything that I do throughout my day, I just foster that excitement in that moment, you know, and that's something that you can do. Another thing is when fear and self-doubt comes up, learn to accept yourself for who you are and where you are in your journey. We also don't do that enough, at least in my experience from working with the folks that I've worked with. Learn to accept yourself for who you are and where you are. A lot of times we want to be so far ahead. Hector, am I a millionaire when it comes to my bank account? No, I'm not, but I accept that. And I know that I can get there. Am I a millionaire in terms of the joy and excitement that I feel in my life? You bet I am. Am I a millionaire when it comes to the self-love that I feel for myself? You bet I am. And in those ways, Hector, even though I don't have like, the financials to back it up, I know that in many other ways, I can share my heart. I can share, you know, so much of the people that tell me like, oh, Fernando, you're always so positive. What's going on? I'm like, well, yeah, you know, I'm a millionaire in those areas. I have a lot to give when it comes to that. You know, I went for a run this morning. I think I saw about 20 people. Every single one of them gave them a big smile and a big good morning. Not one of them, you know, was like, oh, no. Everybody smiled back. Because in milliseconds, if you give someone a big smile, you know, they recognize that. It's like they can't control it. We can't control it. You see somebody smile at you, your body's like, oh, cool, smile back. That's a subconscious thing that we have. And so I know that, and so I'm like always giving smiles because the likelihood of me getting one back is very high. And it's just a small gift that somebody's going to take with them, you know. And so it's something that, you know, we say, and we say, you know, give, even if it's something small, but maybe we don't practice. And just being super diligent about practicing even those small things, you know, because as Jim Rohn says, how you do anything is how you do everything. And if you're able to do those small things in a positive, joyful, excited way, and you're able to foster that for yourself, there's going to be a lot of things that you're going to be able to do that for too, including the relationships with your family, with your friends, with your loved ones, with your community.
Powerful stuff. So the brand, the community is called iMaterNow. Mm-hmm. And you can see it's actually, I love that it's on the video. It's in the bottom left corner of the screen, so people know how to spell it, which I think is great. Where can people find the podcast? Where can they learn more about some of these masterminds? And I'm sure there will be another event at some point. So where's the best place to learn more?
Yeah, definitely. So you can go a couple of places. The main ones are the iMaterNow Facebook page, right? Which just, you know, facebook.com/imaternow. And then also just the website. I update a lot of information on there as well in terms of what's coming up next. The emotional wellness masterminds are always listed on there. The conference was also up there, and I'm going to make sure that I update it with any future events. Yeah, for now, the online emotional wellness masterminds, those are the ones that are coming up next. And then the iMaterNow conference in 2019. That's a little further up the line. But what was awesome, Hector, I mean, people enjoyed it so much that I ended up getting like 4 or 5 recommendations of speakers that should be there next year. And so now it's just gaining a momentum that, to be perfectly honest, I didn't think it would, which is really cool to see.
It's beautiful stuff. Guys, I would encourage you, if you're catching this on the Facebook page, go and follow the iMaterNow page. Make sure that you connect with Fernando. And then if you guys are in the One Life Mighty Network community, you guys can get all the updates in there as well. Then we're going to post that in there. And then, Fernando, if you have any content that you want us to throw up there and share with the One Life community, let us know, and you can connect with Fernando in there as well. Thanks so much, guys, for hanging out, and we'll see you on the next one. All right.